make some few remarks in support of the motion that has been moved. First, Mr. Speaker, I'm tempted to comment briefly on the remarks by the Minister for Education in celebration of what I'll call the new threshold of 60 ministers. I think as commendable as it is, to the extent that we are making remarks that Hansard is capturing, we should add to it the fact that if the result of the election had been different, we'll be celebrating 50 ministers and not 60. The new threshold of 60 is worth celebrating, but in the very near future, we will be celebrating 50 under an NPP administration. Mr. Speaker, I think, however, on a more serious note, it's also important to correct the impression that the consolidation of some ministries necessarily means a wholesome cut or savings of the public purse. Mr. Speaker, for example, today we don't have a Ministry of Information, but we have a Minister of State at the Office of the President responsible for government communication. The same salary that the Minister of Information was drawing is the same salary that he's going to be drawing. All the civil servants who were working at the Information Ministry will continue to draw their salaries. Mr. Speaker, if you go to the Ministry of Works, Housing and Water Resources, the fact that you no longer see a Water Resources Ministry as separate does not mean that any civil servant who worked there has been fired. They will continue to draw their salaries. In fact, all the budgets for projects under water resources have only now been consolidated with Water Resources, Works and Housing. And so, Mr. Speaker, the claim that we make sometimes that there's been a wholesome cut in expenditure is not exactly accurate, and I think that it's something that we should also address our minds to. Mr. Speaker, very quickly, I want to make a few
Honourable Member, I'm not going to take any interjections. No point of order, please. Yes, Minister.
Very quickly, Mr. Speaker, I want to make a few remarks on some of the specific portfolios, starting with the Employment Minister. The Honourable Rashid Pelpo, very respected member of this House, we congratulate him on his nomination. A couple of things that we who have just left government would like to draw his attention to. Jobs are created mostly in the private sector than the public sector. And so it will behoove on him to liaise with his colleagues in the economic sectors so that they can create the enabling environment for the private sector to create the jobs. I say so because already the Minister for Finance, our very good brother Ato, who's just left the chamber, has been announcing that he's going to create jobs. And the lesson that we have learned, which we'll share with them, is that it will be better attention is paid to assisting the economic sector ministers so that they create the environment that allows the private sector to create jobs. Mr. Speaker, additionally, one thing that over the years as a republic we have failed in is having an independent body that can put together statistics on jobs. So in the US, for example, they have the US Bureau of Labor Statistics that captures the data and publishes the reports, I think, on a monthly basis. In the Kufuor administration, we tried a job registration exercise, didn't succeed much. In the Mills administration, I recall my brother Ablakwa, Deputy Information Minister at the time, announcing the famous 1.6 million jobs. And later the Employment Minister was struggling to reconcile. In the Akufo-Addo administration, we resorted to SNIT data of about 2.6 million jobs. It was a matter of public debate. Mr. Speaker, I'm raising this because it's a lesson that as a republic we must learn. And it will serve the new Employment and Labour Minister well if he pays attention to something like creating an Office of Employment Statistics or Labour Statistics in Ghana that can independently gather this data that the political and academic and economic classes can agree on. So we wish him well. Mr. Speaker, the second person I want to speak about is the Honourable Murtala Mohammed Ibrahim, going to Environment, Science and Technology. We're having a big debate here this afternoon about whether or not we can rely on what somebody has written as a matter of fact. Is a debate that is at large. But Mr. Speaker, now the fight against Galamsey, as he also alluded to in his vetting, is something he has to exercise his mind to. and in collaborating with his colleagues, the Minister for Lands, maybe Defense, etc., they will be able to do a bit more in addition to what has been done already. It's a fight that successive governments have battled. We all recall the videos of Professor Mills complaining about it. We recall the videos of President Akufo-Addo committing to work at it. Today, that matter is still at large. So the Honorable Mutala, as you go there, today the cap is squarely on your head, and you have to collaborate with your colleagues to try and achieve some results in addition to what has been achieved in that area. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak about the Minister Designate for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovation. A couple of things, or maybe three things that we have learned just exiting government that he should pay attention to. First is value-added services in the telecom space. A lot of work is being done on voice and data, but if you look at the global economy, a lot of young people are finding expression and wealth in value-added services. Here in Ghana, the digital centers, etc., can do a lot more in that space. He shouldn't just focus on, the telcos, voice and data, but value-added services and how to help young Ghanaians take advantage of that. Attendant to that is the case of business process outsourcing centers. India, Singapore, some other parts of the world are creating a lot of jobs for young people through BPOs. It will serve Ghana well if the minister pays attention to that area. And also the fintech ecosystem requires a lot of support for the young Ghanaians. A lot of them previously will be doing what some may call Sakawa, etc. But that shows that they have the skill. And if they are supported in the fintech ecosystem, they can do some more. And so it will serve Ghana well if he pays some attention to that. Two final points, and then I'll rest, Mr. Speaker. The Minister for Sports and Recreation. It is the new administration that has been talking a lot about the 24-hour economy. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the 24-hour economy for some people is becoming like e-levy. When you ask about jobs, they say 24-hour economy. When you ask about growth, they say 24-hour economy. When you ask about everything, they say 24-hour economy. Mr. Speaker, the 24-hour economy requires them to pay attention, for example, to the astroturfs, hundreds of them that have been built across the country. That is one viable way, Kofi. That is one viable way that night sports under those floodlights can function. And so it is a good space that you should pay attention to so that at least your 24-hour economy will find expression in night sports using the astroturfs that the Akufo-Addo Bawumia administration bequeathed to you before we left office. And Mr. Speaker, my very final point is to the Transport Minister, Honorable Nikwe, very fine gentleman. Not only just to look at the Tamale airport, as the Honorable Education Minister spoke about, but also to pay attention to electronic vehicles. You will recall that the immediate exited administration piloted a rollout of electronic vehicles in the public transport area as part of efforts of reducing the cost of transport. Today, the new president has interestingly named the Energy Minister also as Minister for Green Transitions. It's an indication that there's a lot of interest to ensure that the green space is, may I say, played in some more. It will help if the minister, collaborating with the Minister for Energy, ensure that the policy on EVs is put to use as quickly as possible. In particular, Mr. Speaker, the duties of, on electronic vehicles. So that people who want to go into electronic vehicles, particularly large occupancy electronic vehicles, will find them cheaper, bring them in, and help to reduce the cost of transportation. With these few words, Mr. Speaker, we'll support the motion that was moved by the chairman of the committee. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.